Hi everyone, so welcome to another episode of the 4-0 Impact Series. I'm Leighton Stevens, founder, lead recruiter. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Jan Molman, who is the founder of Leonardo, which is he'll explain it better, but it's a sustainable impact platform, but deep impact. And as you're going to find out in this conversation, there's very much a difference. So, look, first off, so Jan, look, welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thanks, Leighton. Great to be here.
Good. And look, let's just jump straight into it. If you would mind just giving a bit more of an introduction as to yourself and Leonardo.
Yeah, sure thing. So Leonardo is a B2B SaaS solution to measure, verify, and report sustainability impact. And as you already said, we are focusing on the deep impact side of things. So what do I mean with that? Like, we are quite frustrated with the current status of how sustainability is measured in general, because often it takes an outside-in approach. So the question that current ESG ratings or ESG tools are answering is really, what does sustainability mean for my company? And in the end, it's still about the bottom line, about profits, basically. And we are trying to basically turn that thing around and make an inside-out approach. So our software tool helps impact-driven companies to measure the real effects of that organization on people and planet.
Okay. Look, the clues is very much in that last statement, people and planet. I think right. We kind of touched on this before, but I think what's quite often lost is that when it comes to ESG reporting and sustainability impact data, etc., quite often there is more of a focus on just environmental, whereas you guys have identified an opportunity in the market and maybe a gap where it's more kind of holistic. It's more all encompassing. Can you go into that?
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's definitely true, right? Like, even like thinking about ESG, right? It's basically always just the E, and even within the E, it's almost always just carbon, right? Okay. And I totally agree that like climate change is the most urgent challenge that we have. So I'm very grateful that so many companies are working on that. It's important, but still, sustainability really is this entire triple bottom line, right? And so we try to deliver a very holistic tool that helps with the entire assessment of sustainability. And of course, that is a challenge. That is a standardization challenge. That is a challenge where all of these data points are coming from. But in the end, we believe that it's still very crucial to understand that, because otherwise you will face so many trade-offs, right? Otherwise, you might optimize a tiny bit for carbon, but maybe the costs are very high in terms of other environmental KPIs or even on the social side, right? And especially on the social side, so the S of the ESG, we have not seen many tools providing an answer there. And we think it's very important to also understand the social and societal effects of organizations. And so, yes, we put an emphasis on social impact assessments. And the way we are doing that mainly is by actually talking to the people who are affected by products, by projects, by organizations, right?
Okay.
And so we leverage a lot of survey technology to be able to give those affected people a voice to understand the social impact, really where it is created.
Okay. So without naming any names in terms of companies, for instance, but could you elaborate on that? Could you give an example of maybe some social data and how that kind of translates into the platform?
Yeah, for sure. So my background is in renewable energy in West Africa. So that is where I worked in before, and also where I discovered this big opportunity of there is value in impact data, but also the challenge of gathering that impact. So that is my background, and that is also where we are currently focusing on with Leonardo. So we have a big focus on emerging markets, currently sub-Saharan Africa renewable energy projects. And so what that means for these projects that are currently customers of ours is that we make the entire process to collect data from the people who are actually experiencing energy access for the first time in their lives. Right. We make it possible to gather data from them very efficiently, and through that help the company and also the capital providers of that company to understand things like how is poverty changing in those villages? How is the local economy changing? How is the security and safety situation changing? And with that, even the migration tendencies. And then we top that off with usual CO2 focused KPIs and environmental KPIs to understand through renewable energy how much CO2 was avoided and these kind of things. And that again is a pretty good example of what does a normal ESG solution or an ESG rating offer. They would offer basically how much paper waste and how much paper waste is faced of the organization in the headquarter in Germany, maybe, or what is the gender diversity score of the management team, and maybe what are the carbon emissions of that company in the German headquarter, right? Mm-hmm. And again, it's important, but that company is really interested in these things that I mentioned. What are the true effects on people and planet where those products and projects are actually operated?
Absolutely. No, look, makes perfect sense, and thanks for for more of an in-depth overview. But you're right. It's generally accepted that the people in the West, and people in Africa and various other parts they're the ones that are paying the price for what we have in Western Europe in terms of our resources and whatnot, and things like the mining of lithium-ion batteries and the composites within that is a prime example of that. And and I guess you're right. There are a lot of companies that are very much focused on the company, and whilst that's important and it's good and it's a right step forward, there is a much bigger impact, for want of a better term. There's a much bigger, like the butterfly effect in terms of the people that it's impacting globally. So what, interesting. So tell us more about the story so far. So you're, very early stage. You're pre-seed.
Yeah.
Right. So established. Remind me.
Yeah. So. But shall I shed some light on the entire story, or really where we are standing today?
Please do.
Yeah. So as I said, I was working in renewable energy, off-grid energy in West Africa, and there we had exactly that challenge, right? We wanted to understand the deep impact, but what solutions were offering us was rather the ESG indicators at the company level rather than the deep effects. And so we started to develop this in-house solution and try to come up with something that helps us and also our impact investors to understand these deep effects. And then again, we discovered, wow, there's really opportunity, there's value in that impact data, because we can use it for carbon credits, we can use it for attracting impact investors, all that kind of stuff. But then also it is such a challenge, right? And so we saw such a challenge to collect that data. And so we tried to solve that challenge in-house, and it just didn't make any sense. It didn't make sense to hire software engineers and data scientists just for that project, right? And so part-time, I was also then focusing through a PhD on this topic of impact measurement. And talk to many other organizations how they are going about this challenge. And so basically both pathways, the PhD path, the research, but also what I faced at that other company, collecting data myself in the sand of the Saharan desert, was both leading me to this conviction. We need a software solution that is actually helping across the entire data flow, so to speak, from the question, what am I supposed to measure, over the entire data processing and data collection, and then also to the final impact report. And so that is what we started working on about a year ago. Jumped full-time into it, me and two co-founders, Jasper and Sam. And yeah, for the last year, we were building the MVP as you do. Went with the product live in February, which it was full of bugs, but that's what you do, right?
What you do.
and so yeah, like by now we have a handful of customers who are using it in the space that I mentioned, off-grid energy in the global south. And just closed our pre-seed round this summer, building up a team now. So that is where we are standing today.
Excellent, excellent. You've got a handful of customers now, so you've got some real use cases and some I suppose like some customer case studies as well, which will allow you to then go out and I guess if anything, there's like an element of like a re-education when you're speaking to a customer, because they might have the right intentions that they want to be able to track and report upon their impact.
Yeah.
But it's what they've probably seen thus far has been more sort of surface level, right? Whereas you guys are coming in and there's a re-education element as to this is what also you should be looking at and this is how you can do it.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. So that there is this education piece. I feel like in this impact investing space, as opposed to like everything is called sustainable finance now, right? I feel like in the real impact investing space, people get already educated on that. Yeah. So there is a lot of discussion in like even starting in academia, like it's research community, but also like with the investors themselves and their portfolio companies. There is a certain level of education that already took place over the last years, I would say, that we need to move from this surface reporting to like the deeper effects. But yes, definitely, it's still something where we need to educate and also push hard for the sale.
Yeah. Well, look, it's exciting times ahead, but maybe we could just in closing, maybe you could I suppose give us a bit of a glimpse as to what it's been like so far. You know, what the last 12 months of building it have been like, and what the next 6 to 12 months look like if assuming that we don't have there's not another global pandemic or anything around the corner, but what does the future look like?
So right now, as I said, just closed the seed round, so building up the team is number one priority right now. So we are looking for mostly software engineers and data scientists and data engineers who build this product with us, who share our vision. But then we also, like, one step that we are making right now is we provided the solution already to the operating companies. So my example that I gave was from the perspective of the renewable energy developer in Africa, right? And right now we are building basically the second layer for the capital providers, for the impact investing funds of this world. And so that is currently a challenge, and that is also our next step in terms of finding product market fit and all that kind of stuff that we want to address. We want to address the capital providers in the end, because we think this is what will move the needle in the end. If we are able to measure impact in a way that it also realigns capital flows with impact, then we will really have the systemic impact that we are shooting.
Understood. So I mean, look, product market fit is something that is often it's like a recurring topic in this series of interviews, because you get a product to like MPV, and then you get it out, like you say, and then it's buggy, and then there's certain iterations, and look, the market moves as well, right? How you started in January looks very, very different to how you finished in December, because certain things come in, or when you're actually kind of in it and you're up against it, you realize maybe we should slightly pivot or change direction. And it sounds like product market fit is something that you've got an idea of what it looks like, but it's like a refining process, right?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, to be realistic, that's probably what it will be over the next month, maybe years as well, right? But yeah, we are pretty confident that we have a solution that really provides value for the segment where we are in already, and now addressing also the bigger funds. But yeah, for sure, it's very iterative. It's one step back, 2 steps forward.
Yeah. Well, look, you've achieved a lot in a fairly short space of time. So if your previous track record is anything to go by, I'm expecting that the next sort of 6 to 12 months is going to be a very exciting time. You're going to grow in terms of headcount, but also in terms of customer acquisition, in terms of your offering, and like we talk about the refining of the product. Kind of as you go. I imagine when if we was to have this part 2 of this conversation in 12 months' time, we was to compare what it looks like this time next year versus now, there's going to be some real differences. And look, that's where the excitement is, and that's where the appeal should be for anyone that's looking to jump on board and be a part of the journey.
Yeah, I agree.
Then well, look, thank you very much for jumping on this and and agreeing to give a bit more insight into the story so far. I'll make sure that all the information and whatnot is credited, because from our perspective, the more people we can send in your direction, everyone wins, because what you guys are doing is a really noble thing. And it really got me, since we started speaking about a month ago, it really got me thinking about how deep and how kind of wide this can go from like an impact perspective, because it's very, very easy just to focus on the obvious things and not necessarily disregard, but just not be aware of all of the other things that are that you could look at. So look, thanks for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, look, again, thank you very much for your time, and look forward to seeing what the future looks like for you and the guys at Leonardo.
Thank you so much, Leighton. It was a pleasure.
Cheers, Jan. Go.
See ya.